I'll continue my readings on songwriting, and this week's chapter is about collaborations, which is something I've always found interesting, how it would work, how one would have the level of trust. And one distinction these quotes doesn't bring out is, I think, between basically a lyricist and a melodist, would you call them? Where it's obviously complementary, and there are many very famous pairs through history. And that seems kind of natural. I think to be able to collaborate on a lyric seems to me to require a level of maturity and confidence, and that is a bit something else, a bit special. And I don't think that really comes through in these, but some other interesting things do. I've had to pick, a lot of these quotes are from people that I don't know, or I don't think many people here would know, so I've stayed with names you'll recognize, I think. And the first is Noel Coward. The only collaborator Cole Porter ever had was William Shakespeare, as in Taming of the Shrew, Kiss Me Kate. I remember cabling Cole Porter during World War II to ask his permission to rewrite Let's Do It. He gave it generously. Let's Do It was not only a great song as he originally wrote it, but it happens to have a rhyming scheme which can be utilized indefinitely without destroying the basic meter. And I wrote special refrains for the Navy, the Air Force, hospital nurses, CWIC receptions, everyone. Collaboration is not an art, it's a job. Some people call it a marriage. Well, marriage isn't an art either. It's an expression of the desires and loves and wills of two people. In collaboration, two people come together for a goal, and calling that an art is ludicrous. The creation is the art, not the collaboration. The collaboration is the means of reaching that goal. Hal David says, the whole trick of a song is that it should seem like it wasn't written. It should seem not that two people wrote it or three people, but that it came out of one mind. On the other hand, Elvis Costello says when you get two people together, they shouldn't just agree with each other. There should be some tension and a little disagreement, and out of that, good ideas come. Costello did some writing with Paul McCartney, and here's McCartney writing about that collaboration. When I started doing some writing with Elvis, we originally said, well, look, let's not tell anyone we're working together, because if it doesn't work, we're going to look like idiots. How we started writing together was that rather than just going in the deep end, he played me a couple of songs he'd been having trouble finishing and said, tell me what's wrong with these. And then Back on My Feet was one where, in my case, I wasn't totally happy with the lyrics, though I'd pretty much written it. So I fixed up his two songs, he fixed up this one of mine, and we were off and running. The next song we wrote from scratch, which was better yet. Very briefly, Lotte Lenya writing about Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill. The two men wrote and rewrote furiously night and day, with hurried swims in between. I recall Brecht wading out, trousers rolled up, cap on head, cigar in mouth. Slightly longer piece from Mick Jagger describing how he worked. I think that I do everything it's possible to do in terms of writing songs. Sometimes Keith Richards and I would sit with two guitars and just play. He would have a lick that would counter what I was playing. If he would come up with a certain riff, I would counter that. Sometimes I wouldn't play guitar at all. I'd just sit there and clap hands and make up top lines. Sometimes I'd get a drum groove going and sing to that. Or else I played keyboards with a bass drum going. Then again, I might have a lyric idea to start with, and then I would come up with the melody, and on other occasions they'd come up at the same time. I wouldn't get stuck in one way of doing it. You get different things happening that way. And there's a bit of a theme here. This is from, actually, McCartney again. The Beatles. People said, how do you write your stuff? Who does the words? Who writes the music? We'd say, no, man. The minute we discover a formula, we're going to junk it. Because the last thing you need is to be trapped inside a formula of your own making. It's not only bad to be trapped, but you set the trap. Lee Aaron, a name I don't recognize, but a similar comment. Unfortunately, we all have a tendency to resort to familiar doctrines, usually without even realizing, using the same rhyming patterns, structuring the same style of melodies, using a lot of the same chords. Collaborating with outside writers is something that many artists are very stubborn about doing, but I personally feel it's one of the best ways to break old habits and learn new and different methods of composition. And I think at the moment I probably have to give the last word to Bob Dylan. That seems to be very standard. And this is George Harrison. Come back a bit. Bob Dylan and I were both shy. He'd been out of commission socially since his accident. This is 1966. I was nervous in his house, and he was as well. We fidgeted about for 2 days and only relaxed when we started playing some guitars. The song I'd Have You Anytime was an accident. I was just saying, hey man, how do you write all these words? Which people probably said to him all the time. I kept thinking, he'd come pouring out with all these lyrics. Meantime, he was saying, how do you get all them chords? He's fantastic, you know. There's not a lot of people in the world who I see from a historical point of view. But 500 years from now, looking back in history, I think he will still be the man. Bob, he just takes the cake.
Wonderful, Josie.